Okay, thanks everybody for joining in this August webinar for DAC and PHN. This month, our focus has been on the Calm Bee, the Calm Bee paste, and the Mare Relief. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about these supplements and perhaps the science, what science is behind it. Because I'm always talking about all of our products are backed by science, and that's so important to us when we're out there selling these products. So let's just talk a little bit more about that. First of all, though, I want to talk about when a customer comes to you and says, I need a calming supplement. Well, the first thing that you say is, the first thing that you ask are these questions. You don't just say, oh, here's the Calm Bee, try this. Because in efforts to educate customers, the horse may not actually have a true kind of anxiety issue where the Calm Bee will help. And if that's the case, and you sell them the Calm Bee, it won't work, and you look like a fool, and therefore DAC looks like bad because they've sold a product that didn't work. So you have to ask these questions first. So, am I overfeeding the horse? Some horses that are fat are super lazy, but some horses, if you are overfeeding them, they have excess energy and they don't know what to do with it. And it's nothing, and no amount of Calm Bee is going to fix that. Is the food that you're feeding them too high in energy? Are you feeding a racehorse feed to your pleasure horse because Joe Schmo down the road feeds it and she's got a beautiful looking horse? So you need to be asking these questions. Is my horse being exercised enough in relation to food intake? And a lot of times we get stuck with, well, I have to feed him X coffee cans of feed because that makes him look fat and happy. Well, maybe that fat and happy horse isn't getting exercised enough. I once heard a joke about what's the best thing for your fat horse, and it's a wet saddle blanket. And somebody actually asked me where they could buy that. And so my joke was no longer a joke as I had to explain it. But is there enough fiber in his diet? And why would that be important? The first three are kind of self-explanatory, but if there's not enough fiber in his diet, and this is what I'm talking to all the veterinarians about tomorrow, the hindgut will be upset. If the hindgut's upset, which is 65% of the horse's digestive system, they'll be uncomfortable. I feel pretty grouchy when I don't feel well or my gut hurts. So that may be it. Is the horse spending too much time in the stall or stable? Which kind of goes back to are they getting enough exercise? Or I know myself, I have a 3-year-old and child and a 15-month-old. And I can tell when the 3-year-old comes home from school, if he didn't get to go out inside and play that day, he is a horror. He is running around and crazy. And so it's a direct correlation to the amount of exercise that he gets. Does your horse have enough turnout time to relax and interact with other horses? And you're like, why do they need to relax and interact with other horses? Horses are herd animals. They have evolved to live in herds. And some horses really get stressed out if you don't allow them access to other horses, if you've constantly got them penned up. Excuse me. And if they're constantly working, you know yourself, if you come home from work and you have just been go, 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 you just need 5 seconds to sit with yourself before you start screaming at everybody. Is the barn or stable environment stressful? Is there, it seems silly, but they've done studies looking at the types of music or sound that horses like on the radio, and it was quite interesting. I can't off the top of my head, but I think they were looking at just the radio versus rock music versus classical music and just the plain radio, because it was just people's voices talking, I think was best. But, is there a lot of busyness going on in the stall, in the barn? Is there construction? Are they putting new hay up? Is it a stressful environment? Typically, I say put the horses that don't cope well with that on the end of the barn. But no amount of calm B is going to overcome a really terrible barn environment. Is the horse's behavior due to pain? Pain in the gut, pain in the leg, pain in the back because the saddle or bridle doesn't fit properly. You know, oh, I think my horse needs the calm B because he's always running away from me. Yeah, because there's something in the saddle digging into his back. Again, calm B is not going to help. Are his teeth in need of attention? Is this a new behavior? When did it start? Why? Maybe you took another horse away. Maybe you brought a stallion in and now all of a sudden your mares are crazy. Is there an outside trigger for this behavior? Is your horse losing weight? I.e., could this be due to gastric ulcers? Is my mare's behavior due to just a hormonal cycle and then maybe not calm B, maybe some anti-inflammatory and something like the mare relief? Does the behavior only occur at certain times? And then what is that trigger? And take that trigger away and your horse is a normal, calm horse. So again, I encourage you, instead of just throwing a product at a customer, ask a lot of questions because we need to make sure they're getting the correct supplement for the actual problem that's going on. And sometimes the problem they think they're having isn't what they're actually having. So when it comes to science on supplements, and specifically calming supplements, there's really only been one study done in horses. Well, there's been a couple of studies, but on one ingredient, and that's magnesium. So magnesium is a mineral that's important in the body. It's quite a small amount of the total body mass. There's a lot in the skeleton and in the muscle. And magnesium is responsible for enzyme regulation, muscle contraction, and it also helps to regulate calcium. It's absorbed in the small intestine mainly. Magnesium sulfate, one of those inorganic minerals, it has been used as an anesthetic when it's directly injected. So some of the issues, if you have deficiency in magnesium, we can see nervousness, muscle tremors, incoordination. So the theory is, perhaps these horses are deficient, but perhaps just adding more may also overcome some of these problems, if these are the true problems. The maximum tolerable level set by the NRC, or the Nutrient Requirements Council, is about 0.8% of the total diet, which is quite a lot. If you feed too much, you will affect the gut, intestinal integrity. Epsom salts, which is magnesium sulfate, poorly absorbed but has a laxative effect. A lot can really block the uptake of calcium and also block the uptake of phosphorus. So that would interfere with bone metabolism. Magnesium is often seen in calming supplements. So this study in Australia that was done back in 2015 looked at a particular type of magnesium, magnesium aspartate, and they wanted to feed 2.5 grams or 10 grams of actual magnesium per day and compare those two different dosing rates with what we consider a gold standard for calming, which would be acepromazine. We know that acepromazine is a sedative and will calm a horse. And the standard rate for acepromazine is 0.04 milligrams per kilogram body weight. Urinary calcium excretion was higher when they fed the 10 grams. But what they did was they took these horses, and some of you may have heard me discuss this before, and they had them in a laneway, and they timed the amount of time it took to get from the beginning of the laneway to the end of the laneway after they scared them. I don't know, they were flapping umbrellas or something. So it's a little crude, but when the horses were on acepromazine or the 10 grams of magnesium added to the diet, they had the same reaction time. It was much slower than if they were on the 2.5 grams of magnesium. They were faster, or the control, which was no magnesium. They were a lot faster. So this was the first study that compared with acepromazine, a gold standard for kind of sedative behavior. But it was one of a couple of studies that has looked at magnesium, but truly magnesium in horses has been the only one that's really got a lot of science behind it. That being said, the 2015 guidelines for drugs and medications, which is the USEF brochure, and I will actually send to your reps the PDF for the 2017 guidelines. And as we go further, you'll be able to see the link for the FEI, Equine Prohibited Substances. We'll talk about that. But in 2015, it had already been added to the Prohibited Substances, Drugs and Medications Guide, that if you're doing IV fluids or injectable substances, that magnesium couldn't be added to these IV therapeutic fluids. Now, magnesium is a normal substance in the body. It isn't the way we feed it as an oral top dress on a feed or in a paste, unless they're going to eat 20 tubes, which you wouldn't do, or get into a whole bucket, then the amount that they're going to get out of it is nowhere near on the banned substance list. So what have we got? We've got the Formula Calm B in a powder and also in a paste. And the paste has changed a little, and we'll talk about that. But the Formula Calm B, thiamine, which is a B vitamin, pyridoxine, which is a B vitamin, magnesium, and tryptophan make up the majority of this product. Lysine really comes from the carrier. And then we've got the old paste, which we worked with a new manufacturer to correct the paste consistency. Now, Jim, if you would just speak up real quick, are we out of the old stock and we're selling the new paste tubes yet? Okay, no response. That should be happening. If it hasn't already happened, that should be happening soon. So what would be the changes? Because I know everybody freaks out when there's a change, and we have people saying, oh, the old product was better. What's wrong? Why have you changed it? We don't make any changes to the products to make them worse. That is not good business sense, and that is not in our kind of philosophy of trying to move the products forward technologically and make them better for the horses. Now, one of the complaints with the old Calm B paste was it got hard to squeeze it out of the tube. And so we looked at the older ingredients, and one way that we have found to improve the consistency, the old tube was an 80 ml or an 80 gram tube. So it had kind of 2 doses in it. The new tube is a smaller tube, and it's a single-use tube. This single use helps preserve the product consistency. As soon as you pop that top off, I don't know what the client is doing with it. Whether it's sitting on the dashboard of the truck as they go to a show and getting baked in the sun, is it getting frozen in the cold? Is just the lid didn't get put back on, so a lot of air got in there and dried it out. So this single serve tube helps us maintain consistency. The old tube, excuse me, had 2,300 milligrams of magnesium carbonate per serving. The new tube has 10,000 milligrams of magnesium carbonate per serving. So that's 4.5 times more magnesium in the new product. We still have tryptophan and B vitamins in the same concentrations. Tryptophan is not a banned or controlled substance in the FEI, in the USEF, anywhere. It is a natural amino acid. Now, in the paste formula, there's also some taurine, which is another amino acid. that can support brain and nervous system. So in a review of the catalog, which we're always doing as we change things, these are incorrect values now for the new product, but we'll make sure in the next print of the catalog we get that updated. We've also, as you know, oops, go back, in an effort to make all of the products consistent in the look of the product, we've also updated the label. So we probably only have 1 or 2 labels now that are in the older style, but this is the new Can't Beat label. So let's go in a little bit more detail. Now, while we haven't done a lot of studies on tryptophan, particularly in horses, there is research in other animals, and on tryptophan itself. It's a naturally occurring amino acid that supports the production of a transmitter, a neurotransmitter called serotonin. That's just well-documented information, which supports a calm and balanced nervous system. For those of you that are on the phone, we've got a response to our when will the smaller tubes be getting put out into the line. They'll be available by the end of August for the smaller Can't Beat tubes. Thiamine, which is a B vitamin, B1, supports energy production, formation of red blood cells, healthy appetite, and growth, balanced chemical reactions in the brain and nervous system. Now, also, B vitamins are produced by the bacteria in the hindgut. So the question of, is your horse getting enough fiber? If your horse is getting a lot of fiber and the hindgut is healthy, then we're going to get a lot of B vitamin production. A common manifestation, so if we've got lysine, if we don't have enough lysine in the diet, we know that lysine is a critical amino acid and it helps with muscle development. But there has been small amount of information in the literature that if you don't have enough lysine, that it can affect the mood of the animal. So there's some lysine in the powder. A lot of the times, if I've asked all the questions, I have actually been recommending the Cool Gut before the Can't Beat, because a lot of times it's a pain response, and the Cool Gut, and the good thing about the Cool Gut is that 5-pound bucket is a 27-day supply for a 1,000-pound animal. So in 27 days, you will know if the Cool Gut fixed your problem, or we need to then go and try something else. But if we try the Can't Beat, and we're just not quite sure, did it work, did it not? Maybe it's something else underlying. Maybe you're just masking it or band-aiding it. We didn't fix the original cause. So a lot of times if someone comes and says, I want to feed Can't Beat, I will actually say, let's try the Cool Gut first. Give it the 5-pound bucket, try the 27 days. If you notice significant behavior in your horse, then it actually wasn't a true behavioral problem. It was a behavior manifested from pain. So then the mare relief. The mare relief is not necessarily for altering, anxious behavior, but more for the moody mare. While mares are cycling, we know that their behavior can change. So I get asked regularly about the ingredients in mare relief, and specifically some of them, what are they there for? Because they seem a little odd. So the Donquai, and a lot of this again doesn't have a lot of science in horses, but there is science in other animals and in people. So we apply that science. So Donquai is a popular herb for treating women's PMS issues, and can reduce some of those spasms, have a mild anti-inflammatory effect on the uterus. Raspberry leaf improves uterine health, supports healthy muscle relaxation. So again, a lot of times these mares, when they're cycling, their uterus, their ovaries are cramping, and that's giving them pain. So also just some anti-inflammatory from something like the DHA would go nicely with this product. The chasteberry extract, there was actually a study done in Germany looking at chasteberry extract and its effect on the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, which are your organs in the brain that regulate hormones. And the chasteberry extract was able to stabilize some of that hormonal upheaval. The placental substance, uterus substance, and ovarian substance, these are the ones I probably get asked the most about. Why would we put those in there? We're putting, bovine-sourced placental uterus and ovarian substance in the product. And there is some research that suggests it can putting those substances in there because these are also hormone-producing organs that they can help with hormonal fluctuation. The calcium D-glucarate and the chrysin and the indole also have been shown to stabilize a relationship between estrogen and progesterone, which we know are two hormones very involved in the estrous cycle. What I do want to say about the Miraleve, as I mentioned, a lot of times by adding an anti-inflammatory, the yucca, the DHA perform, in conjunction with the Miraleve, that can be really beneficial because we're just taking away some of that inflammation, that tightness, soreness. So if we go back to the beginning, one of the questions was, are you feeding too much sugars and starches in the diet? We know that feeding high sugar starch diets can alter behavior. There's several research papers in horses showing that one of the detrimental effects of feeding high sugar and starch to your horse is that you can get this, anxious behavior. So by adding oil to the diet and taking away some of those sugars and starches and changing the calories from sugars and starches to fat, that can make for a calmer demeanor in the horse. So you have to go back and you have to ask those questions first. So now I want to go to the FEI website, the Clean Sport 2017 Equine Prohibited Substance List. And I want to take you down here. Magnesium sulfate used as a sedative when it's injected is a controlled substance. What you're feeding in the Calm B or any of the other DAC products is not injected and it's not in the concentrations that would be considered controlled or banned. I think I'll go to the next slide and then we'll go back to this really neat link here where you can actually go in on the FEI website and it's got a database and you can put in if something that you might be concerned about and want to know about. We'll go to the next slide first. So a couple of these other substances out there that are banned, that are on either the USCF banned substance list or the FEI banned substance list. GABA. It's the active ingredient, and I'm not even going to attempt to say GABA-aminobutyric acid. I suppose I could say it. Active ingredient in the supplement Carolina Gold. It joined the banned substance list in 2012. It's thought to have calming properties, but the side effects of this, severe shaking, collapse, this is a bad. The thoroughbred and standardbred industry get a bad rap for using a lot of drugs, but I think it was 2012 when there was a pony at a show in New York that dropped dead because it had had multiple different substances injected into it over the course of the show. Valerian. Valerian or extracts of valerian or valerianic acid. These have some, excuse me. This extract or substance is in a lot of calming supplements as well. And it's also on the FEI prohibited substance list. So if you see valerian root, valerianic acid, or any extract from this plant, don't feed it to your horse if you're competing. Oops. Now we'll go back. We'll click on this, and I'll miraculously, just like we're a Food Network show, and I'll show you before and after. And everybody should now be able to see this, right? Everybody can see this? Perfect. So now, if you clicked on the link, you'd go to this page, which is on the FEI, Equine Prohibited Substance Database. And let's just try, let's put in magnesium, for example. Sorry, it's ridiculous. And we can search it, and it'll come up with this and give us a little bit more information. As an injectable substance, yes, this is banned. Close. Let's do another one. New search. Tryptophan, because everybody wants to know whether tryptophan. Nope. Not banned. How about Regimate? Because there are some people that feed Regimate to geldings or stallions. Okay, so Altrenagest. And yes, it's a controlled medication. If you feed it to males, stallions, geldings, it's a controlled medication. So it gives you a little bit more information. Licensed veterinary use for synchronization of estrus in mares and pigs, or for estrus suppression and calming effects when showing or racing mares. Off-license use in stallions is not allowed. Now, these two aren't necessarily calming supplements, but we'll take a look here. Devil's Claw. So, Devil's Claw, controlled medication. It's in our Marilieve, not Marilieve, the other product. Devil's Claw, other trade names, No Butte, Devil's Relief, Nil Butte, as an anti-inflammatory, and it's a controlled medication. Usually the USEF follows the same Herbal Respond, thank you, Everett, as the FEI. And then I have some people ask me about, the AQHA. And, you know, Randy's a judge, so he could definitely give you more of an update on AQHA rules than I can. But I was reading yesterday that they pretty much follow the same as USEF and FEI. Some of their withholding periods are a little longer, or a little shorter, I should say, where there may be a 12-hour rule for USEF and maybe a 6-hour rule in AQHA. My rule of thumb, if in doubt, don't feed it. And there's one more I want to put in because this one comes up all the time. Not, as I said, not a calming supplement, but yucca. It's not a banned substance. Need a question here. Raspberry leaves are prohibited for some breeds, and why? I've never seen that. Let's have a look here. No. I've never seen red raspberry leaves. And this is where sometimes rumors get spread. It's how the yucca rumor got spread. you know, someone decided to tell everyone yucca was banned when it certainly has never been banned. And then the rumors out there, and it's hard to pull it back. So I don't know. I would want to see actual rules for each breed to make sure that it wasn't just a myth. So let me unmute everybody. And the last few callers that came on, please don't get off until we get your names, but I want to just get through the Q&A session before we do that. Okay, questions. Anyone got any questions?
Hey, Tanya, is there a difference between L-tryptophan and tryptophan?
Yeah, it's so funny you ask that question because someone else asked a question about an L-glutamine this morning. No, just like DNL lysine, DNL tryptophan, DNL glutamine, they're the same function, but if you put one in front of the mirror, the other one, so they're just mirror images of each other. So they're the same thing. And tryptophan is just the kind of overall name, and then you might just have the two mirror images, D and L tryptophan. But no, there's no difference. Other questions?
Tanya, this is Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
Hey, I have a client that is giving 8 mils of Regimate every day.
To a mare?
They don't want the, yeah, they don't want
I don't think
horse.
that it's banned for a mare.
But my question is, I mean, she says, you know, I know this is not healthy. We just don't want the horse to come into heat. You know, talk to me about your mare relief. And
you know,
I mean,
I would say just like the gastric ulcer actual drugs. Sorry, I'm gonna have to turn some people's sounds off. That using something like Regimate is your last resort. That's potentially if something like Mare Relief and Yucca or DHA Perform aren't controlling it during the actual kind of height of estrus, then maybe you need to use a little Regimate then. But I would say having that horse on it every day, it's going to numb the horse, it become immune to it. Eventually, it's not going to work at all. So I would say through the other parts of the estrus cycle, I'd be using Mare Relief and DHA or Yucca. See if you can get the horse through the whole estrus cycle on that. If there are times where it's really tough, then put her on Regimate just for those little bits. But I agree. I don't think it's good to have that mare on it every day or, you know, I would just be using it sparingly.
will the horse have any type of reaction or withdrawal? I mean, what would they expect how would they expect the horse to behave if they just stop the Regimate, or should they wind it down? Wean it off.
I mean, I would just stop doing it, but but what they need to do is they need to be able to track the horse's estrus cycle. So if they stop it today, it could be in peak estrus, but I don't know where the horse is in its estrus cycle. So, you know, taking it off it and then kind of tracking it on a calendar throughout this, you know, where and so you can work out where she is in her estrus cycle based on their kind of perceived behavior of the horse. And then, so I would just take it off it so that I could get a better understanding of where the horse was at and then go from there.
Tanya, can I interject there for a second?
Yes,
Susie, they need to wean her off of that over a period of 30 days. That would be the best way. Off of the Regimate.
Okay.
Got another question here. Can Herbal Respond be used with Equiox without any problem? Off the top of my head, I'm blanking on Equiox. So, and I think we're going to talk about Herbal Respond in another one. But you got to be careful with Herbal Respond, feeding that long term too, because it's got the devil's claw in it, and the devil's claw can actually affect gastric lining. So if you're going to have your horse on Herbal Respond long term, then you definitely want to be feeding Cool Gut. I don't see why it would interfere with Previcox. Other questions? I'm going to stop the recording now. Thanks everybody for joining,